What's going on, y'all? Jarek Cyphus, aka Garden Con here. Happy New Year. We're here at last. It's the last day on this long chapter that's been 2019. And what a chaotic year it's been for a lot of people, not just myself. Real life was a frenzy this year. A lot happened. Some good, some bad. All of it affected one way or the other how much I was able to contribute to the Star Wars Galaxies Legends project, how much I was able to work on ILM this year for Galaxies, how much I was able to stream, how much I was able to do YouTube. I mean, I know I promised a pretty consistent year. I know that's the number one rule when it comes to the success of a streamer, but and I failed at that. So if there's one resolution to my audience that I have to give for 2020, it's to be more consistent with the streaming. And there's a variety of reasons for that, and we'll get to that. But if I'd say one thing was representative of my 2020, big ol' F-bomb. You know, I got this because the damn thing was pretty freaking funny. We saw it at GalaxyCon in Richmond, which was a good time, by the way, probably going again here in 2020, so I thought it was funny. It was funny to throw F-bombs around, and then I didn't realize just how representative of my year it actually was going to end up being, so holy shit, folks. I ended the year with the same Patreon supporters as I had in May, a whopping 2, so I could definitely use some help with that. And the next 2 months will it'll influence how I spend my gaming in 2020, because PC gaming is pretty much all I can do right now. Believe it or not, despite the mobile thumb, I can still work a mouse. It's challenging, but I can work the mouse. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the biggest stories of the year to me. Just quick overviews. We can talk more about it later in a different video if y'all want to see more in-depth stuff about what I had to talk about, or you can ask for links to some of my prior videos when it was covered. But I think the biggest one was how Anthem launched as the biggest, most overhyped, underfinished looter shooter ever. I mean, this was like Division level amounts of hype, and it fell so short of what it had promised, and what come to find out was pre-rendered footage of the game engine from the E3 videos. I mean, it was incredibly misleading. It went through a lot of development trials and tribulations. A lot of people had left. You had a lot of in and outs from the higher leadership. The game really did not have any vision, and ultimately I think that's what failed it. And really, I mean, I think Fallout 76 kind of had the same problem. It really didn't have a vision, and that's always what dooms a game before it starts in its development cycles. If it doesn't have a vision behind its creative force, it never ends up being anything with an actual identity. It just ends up being a video game and not something with a soul, like you can see with big huge titles like the Uncharted franchise, Red Dead Redemption, Dark Souls, and so forth. And another good story we were just kind of mentioning that was Fallout 76. It never really found its footing. Bethesda's reputation kind of went in the shitter at the end of 2018 because of the way Fallout 76 came about, and they're not really ending the year too well, because with the hack, it hasn't really been a good year for Bethesda at all, and they have to really turn it around in 2020. And it's not like if Doom Eternal launches in March and it's a huge success, it's not really something Bethesda can take credit for, because that's ID Software all day. We all know it's id Software. That's the creative force. John Carmack has been the driving powerhouse behind Doom forever, and Bethesda can't take credit for that. They publish the damn thing. That's what they get. They have to do something that's in-house. They have to take a Fallout franchise or get ahead of the ball on The Elder Scrolls 6 and make something of it, because otherwise it's just not going to be a good 2020 for Bethesda either. Another big story, obviously civil rights is always on people's minds, and Blitzchung getting banned from Hearthstone for his Free Hong Kong comments in his post-game interview. That was a huge hot topic, and that was just one of those things that really kind of stuck home. And it makes you wonder. A lot of people like to support Blizzard and the things that they do, and oh wow, such a great game. Diablo's such a great game. Hearthstone's such a great game. But just consider for a moment where your money's going when you've got their penny stackers overseas are trying to squelch and censor freedom of speech for people who are fighting for basic human rights. Something that we fellow veterans can tell you we fight for every day, for everyone here back home being able to speak out and stand up for their basic human rights that we have in this free country we call America. So something to think about. Next time you give money to Blizzard, just consider that some of their money is shared with a censorship-friendly nation. And on a positive note, EA actually contributed to a good Star Wars game. Yeah. Jedi Fallen Order, if you haven't heard of it, it's actually a pretty damn good game. I think it's the best game since Jedi Academy and Knights of the Republic. A lot of the critics agree. It's not a perfect game, but it's a terrific game, and it's one of the most immersive lightsaber combat games I think I have seen in many years. So I hope that they continue. I really, really hope that we see more from Respawn in the future on the same caliber that they created with Jedi Fallen Order. I mean, please make a Mandalorian game. That'd be fucking great. I would love it. And while we're on the topic of Star Wars, toxic fans once again try to ruin a Star Wars movie. You got people like Jeremy Hambley of The Quartering and other people who like to do these big buzz stories about, oh my God, Star Wars is in a free fall as they stroke your neck beard. Oh, Star Wars is in a free fall. It's the lowest ever. It's doomed. It's never gonna succeed. But it's been the number one movie 2 weekends in a row, and it is vastly expanded the gap, and almost double so in its other competitors. Knives Out is the only other good movie that's out right now, and folks, Knives Out's not a big budget movie. Star Wars is. It needs to make the money back, and it did. Okay, that's the thing. In its first month, it's going to make more than the money that it cost to make it back, and it's going to continue to be a multi-billion-dollar franchise around the world. Star Wars isn't going anywhere. The movie didn't suck. It wasn't perfect. There are better Star Wars movies out there. It wasn't my favorite. But the movie didn't suck, okay? Don't let toxic, self-proclaimed Star Wars fans deter you from going out and experiencing the closing of the Skywalker saga for yourself. Ignore the critics, go see the movie. If you like it, you do. If you don't, you don't. But go in there with unbiased thoughts in your head. Don't go in there with the influence of other people's thoughts and opinions until you have made a judgment for yourself. That's all I can say. It's Star Wars. Enjoy it. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're probably going to find something to enjoy about it. You're not going to sit there and go, ugh, they had another Jar Jar in the movie again. It's not going to happen, folks. Okay? If you really actually do like Star Wars, and if you're an actual Star Wars fan, you're probably gonna leave the theater smiling in some way or another, not rolling your eyes like, Young, yeah, I love you, dude, but your reaction video was a little melodramatic, bruh. But it's folks, Star Wars isn't going anywhere. Don't freak out if you've already been exposed to the negativity. It's fine. It's here to stay. It's over. It's time to move on to a new story. Go back and play Knights of the Republic, or even join us in SWTOR sometime, or even come join us in Star Wars Galaxy's Legends if you want. There are plenty of Star Wars stories to come around, and if you haven't been exposed to the awesomeness that's The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, you're missing out. That Disney Plus subscription is worth it for that alone. And also, if you're a Simpsons fan, there's 30 seasons of Simpsons to watch. So, you're not going to be bored. And that's about it for best stories of the year. But go see Star Wars. Going on, let's look at looking forward to 2020. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm resolving to be more consistent with my Twitch and my YouTube content. I think YouTube's controversial policy changes have kind of smoothed out a little bit. I think it's calming down. I'm not really worried about that like I was. So let's let sleeping dogs lie and just kind of let that roll off the chest a little bit. And we'll just stick with the plan have a guaranteed, one way or the other, we'll have a guaranteed YouTube video on Fridays. And this week it's probably going to be just tomorrow for New Year's, because I probably won't do one Friday because I'm very busy. So I may not have a YouTube video up Friday. More to follow on that. If it's an extra video this Friday, cool. But I want to start the season tomorrow if I can. It will be a short clip. It won't be a big video, but it'll just be seeing what's hot for 2020 and just see what to look forward to. In the first few months of Twitch streaming is going to influence whether I continue to stream in the quarter two. I want to see if consistency matters in the ultimate grand scheme of things in terms of getting new viewers, new followers, and see if it can kind of generate a little revenue. Because, like I said, I lost some work. My check from Workman's Comp is going to be a lot smaller than I planned. It's going to be behind. I got a lot of appointments coming up in January, so I'm going to be taking a bit of a financial blow. Plus, I'm also trying to sell my house, and it's something I don't want to eat a loss over, and I don't want to end up facing a massive financial situation to where I have to get a second job rather than generate some income from streaming. Because those of you that watch consistently, you are Brother Hal and Full Metal Boxers, and enjoy my content. I want to keep doing that for you. I want to be able to keep doing that for you, but I don't want to lose that free time for a second job. If you get what I'm coming at, there's got to be a little bit of push-pull. I'm not trying to sound like I got my hand out, but something's got to give. See what I'm saying? My rebranding is going to launch tomorrow, so stay tuned to social media for that. I'm going to try and stick kind of clean for this one. It's going to use the same kind of logo, but I might rename. Maybe. And if I do, I'll explain why in tomorrow's video. I will explain this week, one way or the other. And it's up to you to decide the content based on what I've already done. You know what I mean? I did say I was going to run a poll on Twitter. I still plan on doing that, so stay tuned for that, so you guys can vote on the content that I'm going to do. Yep, the dogs are singing for supper. So, and with that, I think let's roll into my decade of games. Now for my top 10 games of the decade. Let's start with Mortal Kombat X, XL, and 11. Or 10, 10L, and 11. So it represented a return to form for Ed Boon and the crew at NetherRealm. In response to the overwhelming interest in the intricate lore of the Mortal Kombat franchise, Mortal Kombat capitalized on Mortal Kombat 9, simply titled Mortal Kombat, type combat by improving it a step further and adding a fairly decent narrative arc that made all of your favorite characters matter. Combined with extensive customization and a wide variety of playable characters, the Mortal Kombat franchise made a sharp course correction in the right direction. They continued the trend with 2019's Mortal Kombat 11, and Mortal Kombat fans all over the world are sure to be ready for more when the next generation of consoles lands in their living rooms, probably next year, earning this game my number 10 spot. Number 9, Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. Final Fantasy XIV's disastrous launch was definitely not a silent one. Despite mixed reception by the West to its Final Fantasy XI predecessor, the Final Fantasy XIV sequel was expected to be a major hit in the pantheon of fantasy MMORPGs at the turn of the decade. Instead, it fell flat with clunky combat, extremely demanding PC hardware requirements, and grindy gameplay that had already grown weary on Western audiences that had already pushed World of Warcraft in a different direction. Final Fantasy XIV was such a failure that producers at Square owned the failure and not only shut the game down, but rebooted its development. The resultant 2013 reboot is hailed as one of the greatest comeback stories in MMORPG history, with tighter, faster combat, deep world lore, and a unique variety of ways to play the game. Final Fantasy XIV relaunched with a frenzy for which the world was not quite prepared, as even legacy servers reserved for players who had called the abysmal 2010 launch home knew pretty lengthy queues at launch. Still, it overcame its growing pains and continues to be one of the top MMORPGs of the line to this day, landing the game squarely, see what I did there, at my number 9 spot. Number 8, Destiny, kind of the franchise, 1 and 2. Destiny represented a turning point in gaming. It took the formula of other looter shooter games, like Borderlands and Fallout, and it applied a little MMO sauce to it. So the result was Bungie inching back towards its prime a little. Although the first Destiny was lacking in the same level of narrative cohesion and quality as the Halo franchise, They corrected this flaw in the Destiny 2 sequel and its many expansions that followed. One thing both games share in common, and where they shine, is that the Destiny-verse is backed by some of the richest lore in gaming, discoverable in the world through points of interest, lost artifacts, achievements, and loot. And that's everything from weapons to vehicles to ships. It's all there. It's deep loot. It's for hours. It makes for hours the most brain-stimulating prose you'll ever read in a video game. Destiny 2 introduced a mixed PvE PvP mode known as Gambit, or as I call it, Ding.
Ding, 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 ding.
And it serves as probably my fondest experience in FPS gaming to date. But a meta-driven PvP balance in its pure PvP mode called Crucible keeps this game from being a little higher on my list of games of the decade. Number 7, Star Wars Galaxies. And Star Wars Galaxies Legends by proxy, since it's in this decade. So SWG is a game that holds a special place in my heart. Although it was not my first MMO, it was the first MMO that truly resonated with me. Yes, there's Star Wars fan bias influencing this opinion, but what worth their weight in gold Star Wars fan hasn't heard of SWG? In its first decade, the game was mired in controversy. Where Ralph Koster had succeeded in creating what seemed like a living, breathing Star Wars world, what he created was an ocean's width with a pond's depth. That depth was occupied by its 34 professions, into which each could be trained and retrained with 250 skill points. What content was available was mostly menu-driven, and its quests were haphazardly organized, dependent solely on the memory and note-taking of the player to track all of the NPCs the player had ever spoken to. The game did, however, possess real-time rather than instanced player housing that could be organized into towns that could grow into cities, complete with the ability to run them as the mayor and enlist militia members to keep things organized and trouble-free. The 2004 space expansion, Jump to Lightspeed, was the first in the game to properly address the questing issues, but only for pilots. By the end of 2005, those quests were joined by more industry-standard journal track quests with clearly defined objectives and rewards. This came at great cost, however, to the aforementioned depth that, while often the kindling in a tinderbox of balanced discussions, was largely beloved by most of the SWG community. Now enter the new game enhancements, or NGE. Easily the most controversial revamp to the game, the NGE reduced the game's professions to a whopping 9, made Jedi starting class in an era where they're supposed to be in hiding, and condensed all the crafting classes into a single class into which you selected a specialization. It wasn't until half the community had made a mass exodus to World of Warcraft that LucasArts and SOE had made drastic changes to its design. Not necessarily revamping the combat again, but refining the NGE and owning what they designed. They introduced an expertise system, that was similar to WoW's talent system, after which they began introducing more quests, heroic encounters, which are 8-man raids, and additional space content and ships. Now added an extensive revamp to the Galactic Civil War, which is the world PvP mechanics, where it made the game feel like your choices in the war between the rebels and Imperials matter, as well as some space bounty hunting, space piracy, smuggling, atmospheric flight, and extensive polish and optimization over the course of 5 years, and SWG looked poised to close the decade on a high note. The game had finally achieved the level of depth and immersion that Ralph Koster and Star Wars fans had sought for years. And unfortunately, due to an alleged non-competition clause with LucasArts, and probably the NGE's controversy, Star Wars The Old Republic ultimately doomed SWG to its shutdown in December of 2011. So many fan-driven projects have resurrected SWG in its many iterations, from the pre-combat upgrade to the combat upgrade, which is between the original and the NGE, and the NGE version, which is what I work on in SWG Legends, and it might even be the most emulated game in the 21st century thus far. So SWG Legends came to light in 2016 and strove to continue the work that SOE was forced to end just a few years prior. Community is what keeps this game alive and makes it so playable, because that's what drives the mechanics around which the game is designed. something to think about. This game is probably my biggest guilty pleasure in all of PC gaming. Were I to rank all of my games as objectively as my favorite game critics do, it would not even make an honorable mentions list. But its current iteration in SWG Legends has endless depth, endless development potential, and arguably the best gaming community there is. It's an online family of fellow Star Wars nerds. And that is unrivaled. It's an unrivaled Star Wars sandbox, is what makes the game achieve the number 7 spot on my top 10 of the decade. Number 6, Guild Wars 2. So having been a fan of the first Guild Wars, I was unsure how its sequel could top the player character skill masterpiece that was the original. Having learned from all the positives and negatives of the first outing, ArenaNet sought to up the scale and the action to a grander and far more epic level. In August 2012, they succeeded, breaking the mold of typical random number generator character skill-based MMORPGs. Guild Wars 2 instead offered a treadmill-free permanent level ceiling where max level exotic gear you acquired in its first year could still matter years later. So in 2019, my Rune of Balthazar Armageddon armor that I earned in the first endgame zone, it's still valid and often enjoyable in the current sandbox, even amongst the pantheon of new skill types, variations, mechanics, and gameplay content offered by the years of steady development and expansions in one of the most content-rich, action-oriented MMORPGs ever made. If there's one flaw to note, it's that what can begin as a smoothly performing game can quickly deteriorate into a choppy slideshow on even the most capable of PC hardware, even when the action is at its most frenetic, and you would need it to be the most smooth. This often overwhelms new players and deters them from committing time to fitting into the action, which is all that keeps this game out of my top 5 of the decade. Alright, now we're sliding into the top 5 of the list, beginning with, you saw this one coming, Skyrim. Skyrim is the RPGer's RPG. It's a veritable single-player sandbox experience. Elder Scrolls V has it all. It's got a compelling narrative flush and palpable characters, and a living social climate that drives this game far beyond the quality of its extensive gameplay variety. Every element you can choose from your race, to the skills into which you can train as you level, to the quests on which you can embark along your journey, they all fit squarely into Skyrim's mythos and inform your choices as you advance in the story. From the very opening, this game's stakes feel impossibly high, and the immutable threat of the game's main antagonist sticks with you long after the credits have rolled. The Special Edition re-release ensures this generation of players can experience what we did nearly a decade ago without missing a beat, because all the freaking content's in there, and it's moddable. This is a game you absolutely cannot miss, and that's why it comes into my number 5 spot. Number 4, Doom 2016. Doom in 2016 by ID Software is the studio's return to form. Following the heels of the graphical and story powerhouse that was 2004's Doom 3, 2016's Doom addressed the panning of its predecessor's slower gameplay and sought instead to restore the frantic pace and run-and-gun experience. They achieved this on all marks, without sacrificing on necessary story elements in the 2016 reboot. Harkening back to the formulas of the 1990s, this Doom comes at you like a chaotic wave of the apocalypse. Not long after arming yourself and dismissing a few zombies with your pistol, you're faced with your first horde of imps, soldiers, and other denizens of hell, convicted in their mission to consume your flesh and leave you in a bubbling pile of your own organs. You have to run, jump, shoot, and dodge your way around the very set pieces that the developers have been kind enough to design in such a way that they can assist you in your mobility, but never make you feel quite safe from the pain that is ever set on stretching a game over screen on your punch-dented monitor. This game punishes you severely for failure and rewards you grandly for success. Even being a little sidetracked to explore from time to time can reward you with much desired upgrades and other unique secrets that can aid you in the havoc you wreak on the ever-amassing gang of unwanted satanic guests. If you're into frenetic carnage and sharp gunplay combined with smooth platforming, Doom 2016 should already be in your library, and that's why it hits my number 4 spot right on the nose. Number 3, the Uncharted franchise. Yep, it's all here, because the Nathan Drake collection came out in this decade. A game as lush in its narrative and intrigue as in its audio-visual design, the Uncharted series raised the bar for PlayStation graphical and platforming standards with every release in the franchise, punctuated by Naughty Dog's magnum opus that was Uncharted 4. The series mixes fluid platforming and gunplay with a deep sense of exploring the unknown and uncovering the mysterious. Powered by a tremendous force of writing and voice talent, each game flows along like a certified fresh summer blockbuster. As each game offers something new in the gameplay and story departments, it most benefits the player to purchase the Nathan Drake collection if they're also purchasing Uncharted 4 for their first time, and play through the series in order. The experience of playing along the story sequentially and personally witnessing a decade-spanning development process that resulted in some of the most gripping narratives and character development in video game history is on its own worth the price of both games together. There's a reason these games have earned a myriad of awards across their many releases, and that's why this game earns my number 3 spot of the decade. Number 2, Jedi Fallen Order. It finally happened. EA published a Star Wars game without a hiccup. They eschewed controversial design decisions that forced Star Wars The Old Republic to become a freemium on rails theme park that ended the only Star Wars sandbox in existence, and eschewed the practice of loot boxes and microtransactions to feed their revenue-starved cash cow. They published one of Respawn Entertainment's best games to date. They published easily the best Star Wars game since the original Knights of the Old Republic and Jedi Academy. They actually made a damn good Star Wars game. In Jedi Fallen Order, you have the best of many worlds. You have the brisk saber dueling of Jedi Academy. You have the skill tree growth of like that of KOTOR, Knights of the Republic that is, and Final Fantasy 15. You have platforming and storytelling of Uncharted. You have globetrotting and backtracking where sidebarring to explore rewards you like Castlevania and Metroid. And then you have a sharp combat system that demands precise timing and discipline like Dark Souls and Sekiro. All of these elements unify into a truly unique Star Wars experience that only this game has thus far been able to convey. Through this game's many challenges, twists, turns, and connections to the Force, you will observe clearly defined character growth, watch as the protagonist overcomes great adversity in the face of impossible challenges, and feel like a Jedi Padawan that inches over the line that defines them as a knight, and feel as though you earned it. Any Star Wars fan without this game in their library is missing out on one of the best gaming experiences in 2019, and that's why this game's my number 2. Number 1, the Red Dead Redemption franchise. These two games made the top of my list for reasons that should be obvious. An endlessly deep world through which intricate tales about outlaws are cleverly woven. The rich storytelling, blistering snaps of gunfights, and the rewarding gameplay all combined for a near-flawless gaming experience spanning a decade of Rockstar's excellent development. It's rare that a sequel matches the original. It's rarer that it improves upon it in virtually every way. Now, if you're new to the Red Dead Redemption franchise, it might actually benefit you most to begin with Red Dead Redemption 2, as it is actually set prior to the events of the original game that released in 2010. Both games sport the typical staples of Rockstar gameplay: weighty movement and gunplay, a rich interactive world, a deep narrative with stakes and consequences that feel real and penetrate you to the soul, and a main protagonist that often voices what we're all thinking. The original Red Dead Redemption feels like a Grand Theft Auto game on horseback set in the 20th century's pre-motor car youth, with the added mechanics of hunting, horsebreaking, and yes, even seriously, cow herding. Now, given the accomplishment of a rich narrative, all of these elements combine into a worthwhile experience that had lasting effects on those who played it. Enter last year's RDR2, and you have a complete improvement on all of these elements in virtually every way. The world feels more interactive, all of the gameplay from hunting and herding to gunfighting and horse riding feels leaps and bounds more realistic and immersive, and the visuals are hands down the best ever seen in a Rockstar game to date. Then there's the story. RDR2 offers one of the most grounded yet powerful narratives ever experienced in video games. Its themes of family, friendship, love, and loyalty will resonate with many, and the cost of upholding these values and the many forms in which they take will strike you deep to the core long after the credits have rolled. Both Red Dead Redemption titles are superb entries in the pantheon of Rockstar's masterpieces, but none are as profound as Red Dead Redemption 2 on its own, and that's why it made my #1 game of the decade, hell, of all time. And that's why 2020 is shaping to be quite an exciting new year for gaming. But this wouldn't be a bit of a review on decades and games without a few honorable mentions. We'll start at the top with another Rockstar game, Grand Theft Auto 5. For many of the same reasons that I talked about Red Dead Redemption. It's a good open world game, and it kind of introduced a new way to play games online. Now, the reason why I didn't make my top 10 is the online experience wasn't perfect, and it kind of invited a lot of griefing, but it did offer a lot of creativity while it was at it. So it really it offered a glimpse into the future of online gaming. And the single player experience is unlike anything that had come before it. 3 different characters to play. It was a great game. Grand Theft Auto 5 is an awesome experience if you haven't played it yet. Another honorable mention is Dark Souls, for reasons that should be obvious to anyone who played it. The game really is the reason why Jedi Fallen Order may have taken some of the forms that it has. It definitely, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice owes its existence to Dark Souls, the Dark Souls trilogy, because they found a way to make a game so punishingly difficult and so punitive for failure, yet so rewarding for success, that it makes you feel like you have to finish. You can't accept failure. You have to push through. You have to complete it, and you feel personally rewarded for hurdling that leap. The achievements that you feel that you've reached when you master a new type of parry and a new type of combat, and you've mastered the weightiness of your weapon. There's no experience like it. That's why Dark Souls definitely had to make my honorable mention list. Another one that's in there is Minecraft. If any kids are watching this, you probably know why Minecraft has to be in here, because it was a way to invite minds of all ages to kind of express themselves and experience a little creativity in video gaming beyond that of a map editor. Minecraft is an endless map editor with endless potential. The sky literally is the limit in that thing, and it's still kicking to this day for good reason, because it is the creator's sandbox, and it will continue to be for many, many years to come, and I'm sure of it. Another one that might surprise some folks is Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I'm talking about the new one. Yes, the one with the controversy about loot boxes. And that's the thing, is if you take away that controversy, if you want to talk about one of the most immersive experiences in Star Wars combat, look no further than Star Wars Battlefront 2. So if you have an opportunity to go and get it on sale at GameStop, or Best Buy, or Target, or wherever, and pop it into your PlayStation 4, or pop it into your Xbox, or even just get it for free on PC because you just happen to have an Origin Access, definitely give this game a try, because if you're a bit of a hardcore Star Wars fan, you don't want to miss out on this experience, because the way it immerses you in the Star Wars experience itself is unlike anything else that's out there. And last but not least, Star Trek Online, another game that might surprise some folks. And there are actually a couple unique reasons why Star Trek Online makes my honorable mentions list. First, launched in 2010. The thing about Star Trek Online is it had a bit of a rocky start. It was under a different developer prior to it launching under Cryptic's flag. And it was going to demand that a bunch of players commanded a single starship. Now, games like Star Citizen are seeking to do the same thing right now, and maybe this generation's ready for that, but Cryptic rolled the dice and took a chance and made it more of a power fantasy game where you're the captain of a bunch of NPCs commanding a ship, and that seems to have worked better. It's more attractive, it's a lot more pick up and play, and it allows people who may not be as deep of gamers that are also Star Trek fans to get into the Star Trek world and experience it. And with the recent rise in popularity of Star Trek, again, thanks to things like, the new J.J. Abrams films, Star Trek Discovery doing well, the Picard series right around the corner, just a couple weeks away, Star Trek Online starting to boom again. And believe it or not, it was actually the one place where they got a lot of the actors from Voyager and even Deep Space Nine back together. It allowed people like Renee Auberjonois and Aaron Eisenberg to reprise their roles one more time before we tragically lost them this year. And I don't know if we would have had an opportunity to see them perform again had that opportunity not been provided. So to Cryptic, Paramount, CBS, and to the late actors who lent their talents to this incredible game that has a lot more depth than it's given credit for, thank you. And that's why y'all made the honorable mentions list. So that's it. That's my decade in gaming. It's going to differ from a lot of others out there, but that's mine, and that's some of it's objective, some of it's subjective. They all have different places and different reasons for being in the order and for being in the list that they're in. So there's different reasons for all that. But I had a great decade of gaming, and I'm really, really excited for the next decade because it seems like games are just going to keep getting better, and there's going to be even more surprises around the corner. And I hate using the term getting woke, but it seems like that's an appropriate term in a way, because it seems like consumers are getting woke about the whole microtransactions and egregious monetizations, as Yang likes to say. And it's starting to put pressure on developers to create more quality games. If there were more games like Jedi Fallen Order made by these big AAA studios that normally take advantage of microtransactions, you'd probably see a lot better competition between those companies in the future. And I'm hoping that they're paying attention to that, because gamers like myself, we will buy games on an informed decision, not an impulse, this game looks cool decision. If it looks controversial, if it looks like it's going to be far too tempting to our wallets, we're not going to waste our times on it. That's Destiny. Destiny almost lost me to Destiny 2 because Activision had pushed too much of its own microtransactions into it. Now, it is largely cosmetic now that Destiny has its microtransactions, so we'll see how they go forward with this. But, folks, 2020 is going to be a great year, and I love doing this, but I can't do it without y'all's help. So stay tuned to Twitter. You'll be seeing a poll go up soon. Let me know what kind of content you want to see on my channel going into 2020, and let me know what kind of content you want to see on Twitch going forward for the streaming. There's all kinds of games I can play. Obviously, the games that I like are going to be the ones I'm probably going to be most enthusiastic about, but what do y'all like to watch me play? You let me know in the comments below. Let me know on Twitter. Hope to see y'all. Have a safe New Year. I'll see y'all next year, which is in about, a couple hours. So, love y'all, guys. Peace. Jarek Cyphus, signing out.